What's up, movie freaks? Today we're going to be discussing Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I'm Nathaniel from Film and Thespian.
And I'm William, or Wilkamz.
So, I guess this was my pick this time. This is my second favorite movie of all time. And I feel weird saying it's my second because it's very, very different from my number one favorite film, which is the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which I count as one film, and you can't argue with that on me. It's one film.
No, that's legit. That's legit. They filmed it all at once, so you know.
Yeah.
Who directed
so
this one?
They're two very separate films.
Yeah.
So it's weird putting them in like a specific order because they're just different things.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more artistic and a little bit more thought-provoking, whereas Lord of the Rings is just a beautifully crafted film.
Yeah.
For just entertainment.
Yeah.
This is too, but I mean it's
right.
Yeah, one's spectacle and stuff.
Yeah.
This one's more in depth.
Yeah. So this is directed by Michel Gondry.
Michel Gondry, and I know it's Michelle because I watched the.
So it is Michel.
Behind the scenes of stuff. Yeah, he's French.
Gotcha.
That's why.
I'm not real familiar with him as a director.
Me? I don't think I've seen any of his other stuff.
Yeah.
Actually.
But this was written by Charlie Kaufman, and so I more think of it as a Charlie Kaufman film, even though he didn't direct it. But it's got his stamp on it, you know.
Yeah.
It's very much a Charlie Kaufman movie.
Oh yeah. And it is a very beautifully directed film too. Like,
yeah.
I feel like it wouldn't be that different if Charlie Kaufman had directed it.
Yeah, probably not. It'd probably be about the same.
Yeah, for sure. It stars Jim Carrey, Kate Winslet, Tom Wilkinson. Speaking of Lord of the Rings, it has Frodo Baggins, Elijah Wood in it. And it's got the Hulk in it before he was the Hulk.
Yeah.
And
Ruffalo, that Hulk.
Yeah, Mark Ruffalo. Yeah, Mark Ruffalo.
There's been a few Hulks.
Yeah, I probably should have specified that.
The most recent Hulk.
Yeah, I think he does a really good job in this movie as well. I think all the acting in the movie is really, really good. I don't think there's a weak actor in it.
Yeah. This was the first time that I saw Jim Carrey not just being silly.
Yeah.
Like actually acting. I was like, oh crap. Yeah. He can act.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This and The Truman Show. He is more serious. I feel like he's a little bit more serious in this than he is in The Truman Show.
I haven't seen that one.
That's a really good movie, too. You should check that one out. But in both, he has moments where he has Jim Carrey moments.
Mm.
But I feel like in this one, it works more for his character, because, like, I guess we should probably say this is going to be a spoiler review.
Oh, yes. This will be a spoiler discussion.
In case you haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I would highly suggest watching it before you watch this video, because going into the movie blind, I feel like definitely helps with the viewing experience.
For sure.
When I watched it, I really didn't know really what it was about or how.
Same. I went in pretty blind to it.
All I knew it was a Charlie Kaufman movie, and that it was going to be one of Jim Carrey's more serious roles. And so that's what I went into it knowing, and I was blown away immediately. I watched it a second time. I watched it again immediately after I saw it.
Yeah.
But I feel like in this movie, it works better for his character a little bit better because there's the moment when he decides that right at the beginning of Act 2, where he decides that he doesn't want to lose his memories of Clementine, and he kind of like he's yelling to the sky saying he wants to call it off, and he does this weird like shaking thing.
Yeah.
And then there's a scene where he's trying to hide Clementine in his memories and in his thought, and he turns into his like 5-year-old self.
Yeah.
So he can play around with him being 5 years old. So like, and then there are a few other moments, but they're like small, minute, and I feel like they work for the story and for his character.
Yeah.
And just like his relationship with Clementine, like he's really introverted and closed off and everything. But then when you see how he acts with Clementine, they're playful with each other. And so like when he's acting kind of like Jim Carrey, it just feels like that's how he is when he opens up to somebody and he's really comfortable.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
yeah, no, I agree. It works really well.
Yeah.
The writing here is just masterful all around.
Yeah. I would argue that this is Jim Carrey's best performance. And
from everything I've seen, I would agree.
I mean, I guess that you could argue that like this is dramatic and then his other stuff is comedy, so they can't really compare them.
But I feel like he's done at least a few movies that have been more serious roles.
Like Truman Show, but like you said, you hadn't seen that one.
Yeah. I feel like there was another movie that was I can't remember what it was. I feel like it was normally sold in the horror section. That was apparently a more serious, but I can't remember what it was.
I don't know.
I haven't seen it, but I've heard people talking about it, and they were like, "Oh, Jim Carrey can actually act, and it's a serious role and stuff." So I feel like he has done other serious roles.
Yeah,
but he's just known for the comedy. Yeah,
as if his comedy isn't him actually acting.
Right.
I'm sure he doesn't act like that in real life, so it's probably...
Right. Well, who knows, honestly. He might act like that in real life.
Yeah. But yeah. And Kate Winslet. I've only seen her in 2 other things other than this, but in both things, this is by far her best performance out of those 2 things I've seen.
I'm not sure if I've seen her in anything else or not.
Have you seen Titanic?
Not all the way through.
I've
seen clips, but
I think that's like the thing that she's known for is Titanic, which I mean, I guess makes sense because that's like one of the biggest movies of all time.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, I watched it. It was fine. The story wasn't anything spectacular. I think the thing I find most interesting about Titanic. Sorry, I'm going to go off on a small tangent here.
You're fine.
The thing I find most interesting about Titanic is the production behind it, because the Titanic was an actual set, and like the way they filmed it and everything is really interesting.
Yeah.
But
well, you can definitely count on
James Cameron.
Yeah, to do stuff like that.
Yeah. Even his like not so great films, like Titanic and Avatar, there is stuff to appreciate about them because
sure. He puts a lot into it.
Yeah. But anyway,
I prefer his earlier films.
Yeah, like Terminator and stuff.
Yeah, and Aliens.
Yeah.
There's even some, there's a couple of older horror movies from the 80s, like real obscure stuff that I've seen that he he was like a part of, like helped with set designs and stuff like that, and like he worked on them, but he wasn't like, so
Directed.
that was kind of neat too,
Yeah.
to see that stuff and know that he was behind some of that stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, at the end, the character, like Charlie Kaufman's characters, were always really well fleshed out and really well crafted, and like even the side characters, like Tom Wilkinson, Elijah Wood, Mark Ruffalo's, and Kirsten Dunst, their characters are really well fleshed out.
Yeah, you can't really imagine the story without any of the characters.
Yeah,
like none of them are unnecessary. They all have some purpose in the story.
Yeah, and I think that was really one thing that I really enjoyed was that you see Kirsten Dunst for the first time, and she's like a desk worker, clerk person, and you're kind of like, oh, that's what she is. That's who her character is. Okay, cool. And then she shows up again, and you realize that she's going to be more in the plot, or more in the side plot.
Yeah.
And yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess we should probably also talk about the structure of this movie.
Yes. I really like the way that it doesn't go in order from the start.
Yeah.
But it flows in such a way that you don't realize that until down the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I didn't realize it at all. I think the first hint, it's actually not the first hint, but the first hint that's like very, very obvious is when Joel is getting his is starting to set up getting his memory erased of her, and he mentions how they first met, and it's not how you saw how they first met.
Yeah.
So you're like, what was that? But the whole movie's like about memories and getting them erased, and you're like, well, maybe something weird's going on here that I missed.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a little jarring because you're like, wait, I mean, they knew each other for like a couple of days.
Yeah.
But and then it flows in such a way that it's not like, oh, and now we're going back in time.
And it doesn't give any title cards too.
Yeah.
So that's also nice. And I think this was back in the time when that was like really popular, was doing weird out of order looping.
Yeah. I feel like Tarantino kind of popularized it with Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
Of course, that one's done really well too, in my opinion. But that's a very different way.
I love it when people do it, as long as it's done really, really well. And I feel like this one also does it in a way that's kind of unique and different from other things that you've seen. Because like there's Memento, which is really good, and then
I've been meaning to go back and rewatch that one because I remember Memento being really good, but I have not seen it for a long time.
Yeah, it's been a while since I watched it too, but I remember people kept talking about it, and I was like, okay, I need to. And Christopher Nolan's a really good director.
Yeah.
So I went and watched it, and I was really impressed with it.
Yeah.
Like these movies, am just really impressed with the directors and the screenwriters of them because they get so confusing.
Yeah.
And try to structure them. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are lots of clues for you to like pick up on, and the more times you watch it, the more clues you pick up on.
Yeah.
Because like the first time I noticed him just mentioning it, obviously, because that was probably the first most obvious one. But then there are dates that they keep mentioning throughout. It's like at the beginning, he says he's talking about Valentine's Day and how it's just invented for greeting card companies or whatever. And it was like Valentine's Day or like a few days after Valentine's Day. And then when he's going back through his memories, they're talking about how it's almost Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
And so, like, if you were like really paying attention to the dates and stuff, you'd be able to tell that it was backwards or that they were skipping a little bit. Also, a few. You'll see when it like goes from right after they like meet and she goes to get her toothbrush or whatever, and then it moves on to him crying in his car. You'll see the like little black dots that they put on his.
Yeah.
Also mark the.
Yeah, I noticed that. The first time I noticed that was on the last time I watched it.
Yeah, I think it took me 3 times before I noticed it.
Yeah, I think that was my third watch of it.
And I actually didn't notice it. I was showing it to a friend, and she pointed it out after it had ended, and she realized what had happened. She was like, "Oh, I noticed those black dots on his temple," and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." So when I rewatched it, I was like, "Oh, hey, yeah, there they are."
Yeah.
And then there are a few other things, but I'm not going to go into them, mainly because I can't really remember. I didn't write all of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's another thing. It has a lot of rewatch value because you'll just pick up on stuff every single time you watch it.
Yeah, I feel like no matter how many times you watch it, you're probably going to pick something new up.
Yeah. Like, one thing I noticed was that one of like their first conversation, Joel keeps saying, "I'm just trying to be nice," or "I was just trying to be nice," or "You seem nice," and Clementine gets all riled up about it for some weird reason. And then I rewatched it, and then he kept talking about how his like ex Naomi, she was nice, and it just kind of, I guess it is like, it's like a subtle little discussion on nice is essentially just settling for something.
Yeah.
Which is something that is really important to discuss, because you shouldn't just settle because it's nice.
Right.
You should yearn for something more, which I think at the end of the movie you find out that he was like living with her even though they weren't like together anymore, but they just were like settled, but they weren't really together.
Right.
You know, that's just kind of like Joel's personality. He's really bad at just settling for things because that's his character.
Yeah.
And Clementine is not the type to settle. She's very impulsive, which is another reason, because she apparently was like feeling trapped in their relationship, so she got him erased from her memory, and Joel didn't even know until his friends told him, which they were supposed to.
Right.
Which I think it's weird that Lacuna didn't send him also a note saying that she had erased him. Like, I kind of understand why, because, like, that's really painful to find out. But also, like, he went to go see her, and she just didn't know him. And, like, he thought about going to her house. And, like, if he didn't know that she had erased him from his memory, then that would be, like, kind of a creepy thing for him to do.
Yeah.
From her perspective.
Yeah.
But, like, you would think that they would also send him a letter saying, hey, she erased you from her memory. Please don't talk to her.
Yeah. Yeah. You would think.
But speaking of, the name of the place that does the thing, Lacuna. Do you know what lacuna means?
No.
It is I think it's a Latin word. It means an unfilled space or interval gap. Or interval, a gap.
Mm.
Yeah. And, like, I looked at, just, like, was watching it the first few times and didn't really think about it, but then I was like, this is a Charlie Kaufman movie. Lacuna probably actually means something, so I googled it. And yeah, it means an unfilled space.
Yeah, that's definitely Kaufman.
Yep.
Everything means something.
Yep. Oh, also to go back to the settling discussion, I think Clementine does kind of settle at one point because she gets with Elijah Wood's character, who is just the awkwardest, just desperatest person. He just wants to be with somebody.
Yeah.
And, like, he was one of the people to erase her memory, and then, like, fell in love with her and just started being a creep.
Yes.
Looking for her. Stole her underwear. Stole Joel's things so that way he could seduce her with his.
Yeah. Which
stuff.
I thought that was pretty dumb on his part because, like, yes, it worked already, but then you are risking triggering those memories. But I mean, I guess they're supposed to be erased, but, like, she was still, like, off-put by it when he would say the stuff.
Yeah. And obviously, it did something. She didn't fully remember.
Yeah.
But, like, at the beginning of the film, she's like, I know you from somewhere. And, like, he didn't remember her at all. So that's probably it from that. Yeah. And also, she went to Montauk by herself. So that was another thing that he probably pushed her towards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, so I think she just kind of settled for him because he was there.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably a theme. Not a major thing, but a theme that is discussed in this film is settling.
Yeah. For sure.
Another thing I wanted to talk about was Joel's friends, their relationship. Another theme in this movie is, like, doomed relationships.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the film, it loops this one clip of them, like, running along the beach in Montauk in the snow, and it kind of my first impression when I saw that ending was that they had done it they had been together several times, and then each time got their memories erased of each other, and kept going through that loop of getting together, breaking up, feeling awful about each other, so they got their memories erased, and, like, it kept happening. Their friends obviously don't have a very good relationship because they're always arguing over little things.
I'm building a birdhouse.
I'm building a birdhouse. He won't, like, And then when you finally get to the scene where they actually meet, which is like a beach party, he won't let her carry anything because he's scared that she's going to drop and break something.
Yeah.
And he makes her carry the heavy thing, and then she can't handle it because it's too heavy.
Yeah.
So she ends up taking like a small little thing that weighs like 5. I was gonna say 5 pounds, probably less than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's a little interesting to see how it's not just Joel and Clementine's relationship but they are also seem to stay together for. So maybe that's like a commentary on how sometimes when even if times are tough and sometimes you just need to work them out and and learn with people's flaws rather than break up and try to erase those memories.
Yeah.
It goes to the end of the movie when Kirsten Dunst's character goes and sends out everyone's files back to them, and so that they have an interesting what's the word I'm looking for? Situation. They have an interesting situation where they know each other's flaws and what they come to like get annoyed with each other the most about before they get into their relationship.
Yeah. Yep. But they decide to give it a shot anyway.
Yeah. Which I think is beautiful, and I love that ending so much.
Yeah.
And then it has one of the most beautiful lines from the movie where you realize that they've had this whole relationship but can't remember each other, and she walks out on him and he's listening to his tape about her, and you hear the line, "How can you spend so much time together just to find out they're a stranger?" And like, oh, ooh, it's so good.
Yeah.
Love it. I love this movie so much. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
Yeah, it's...
And also, like, what were we saying?
No, you go ahead.
The imagery of like when they're on that lake and they're laying down on the ice, there's that big crack right next to them.
Yeah.
And like the first time I watched it, I was like, what does that crack mean? And it's on the cover too, so like,
yeah.
Every time the first few times I watched it, I was like, what does the crack symbolize? Because it's a Charlie Kaufman movie. It's got to symbolize
right.
something.
Yeah.
And my interpretation of it is just the theme of the doomed relationships, and like no relationship is perfect, and like having them being able to know their flaws before they get into the relationship and deciding to go with it anyway. That's what I feel like the big crack represents.
Yeah.
Did you have a different theory on what the crack meant?
Yeah, about that, about what you said. Yeah, pretty much on the same page there.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is just masterfully done.
I was watching the behind the scenes, and Michelle wanted to do something that he got away with a lot of things. I don't know what they were, but they were saying that he talked the producers into doing a lot of things that they didn't want to do first. But there was one thing that the producers were like, no, absolutely not. We're not doing that. And he wanted to put a car in the lake with the headlights on, and then wait a day for the and then tie a rope to it, and then wait a day for the lake to freeze over. And then when they're laying there on the lake next to that big crack, he wanted to have them people off screen to pull the car, so that way you just see the car with the headlights going underneath them. But the producers are like, no, that's really expensive, a lot of work, and you may not even see it on film, so no.
Yeah, wow.
But
That sounds intense.
Yeah, the imagery for that would have been really cool, though.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
They probably could have done it without doing a car, because there are other ways that you can get lights to be underwater.
Yeah.
I think he wanted the imagery of the car.
I
don't remember why exactly. But.
Yeah. I mean, the whole situation about, being underneath the ice in general, no matter what it is, sounds like it would be difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I mean, this was early 2000s, too, so... I think they did a good job at limiting visual effects.
Yeah.
Because
and a few visual
effects do what?
The way they did the visual effects that were in there were really interesting, because the scene where he's like, look at it out here, it's all falling apart. They had an idea of what they wanted to do, but they weren't sure. The first thing that they did, and they left it in, I never noticed this till after I watched the behind the scenes, is they just removed one of Kate Winslet's legs, so she's just hopping around on one leg. And I did not notice that at all.
I thought they didn't notice that either.
Until I saw it, until I watched the thing, and they said that they showed it to an audience for, like, what are those audiences called? They show it to them before they finish it.
Oh, like the test audience, like the pre-screening test.
They showed it to a test audience, and they were just, like, sitting there giggling because they thought it was hilarious. Nothing from the audience, and they're like, did they not think it was funny? Did they even notice? What?
I've watched the movie at least 3 times. I haven't noticed that. I would have to go watch it again now.
Yeah, she's hopping around on one leg during that scene. It's really, when you notice it, you can't unnotice it. But before then, because the weird thing about it is they still have 2 footsteps in there. I think that's what throws you off. Because you can hear the 2 footsteps hitting, but there's only one leg. So that's what it is. You just hear the 2 footsteps, and you're like, oh, she has 2 legs. You don't even pay attention. But then they added that car falling in, which that got a reaction out of people. But they weren't expecting to do that. So, like, they had to, and back in the early 2000s, VFX weren't as good at putting in stuff without a plan.
Yeah.
I feel like it looked pretty good for...
Oh, yeah, this is 2004. So, yeah. Visual effects were not great in 2004.
Yeah.
For the most part. I mean, obviously, there were some doing great stuff.
Lord of the Rings, for one.
Exactly, yeah. But...
I always have to remind myself, whenever I see Elijah Wood come on, acting all awkward and desperate, that he just came off of doing Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Yep.
Because whenever I see it, I'm just seeing, like, pre-Lord of the Rings Elijah Wood, but I'm like, no, this is after.
Right after, yeah.
Like, immediately after.
Yeah.
But, yeah. And then the way they did the scene where he's, like, trying to catch up to Clementine, but every time he runs down that street, they flip it.
Oh, it's great.
The way they did that, that's mostly practical.
They did a lot of practical stuff here that you wouldn't normally think would be.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that one, though.
Yeah, the way they did that was they had him run down the street, and whenever he ran behind something, I think there was like a telephone pole or something. They would just flip the film, and then they had the signs. They even had the signs mirrored, so that way they were backwards, so that when they flip the film to make it look like he was just running back and forth with this one scene. That way when they flipped it, the signs were still straight.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah. I love a lot of the imagery that they do when they're inside his head. There's that scene that's great. The scene where Clementine is like laying on the ground and gets pulled away into the dark. That is my favorite shot visually in the whole movie. I love that shot.
I love the whole like spotlight stuff that they do.
Yeah, that's really good too.
The lighting for that.
And another one I really like is when he's underneath the covers and like crawling forward and is like, just let me keep this one. Just let me.
Yeah.
That's a great moment.
Yes. Oh my god. And, like, I think that's the first time like I really realized in really any movie, because like part of it is not just Eternal Sunshine. It's people kept talking about Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and like I've known about the 3-act structure doing plays. I've seen acts, and you would always separate acts by like Act 1 and Act 2 would be separated by intermission. So that's how I would be able to tell with theater, but with movies I could never tell. Couldn't really figure out what they were, and then I watched this video saying that Act 2 starts when the main character decides something that pushes the plot forward, and that's that moment. That moment when he's like, "Let me keep this memory," and then he decides, "I don't want to lose my memories of Clementine." That's when Act 2 starts.
Yeah.
And so that's the first time I really realized it, and so now this is just going to be my staple of like, Act 2 needs to start with a punch.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And you just feel for him the whole time during that whole scene. Because it's a really sweet scene, and then it's just taken, and that scene of her getting pulled into the darkness, it's just like, alright, we're taking this away from you now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great.
Yeah.
That scene where he like comes into like the doctor guy's office and he sees himself talking to him.
Yeah.
So that was all one take.
Yeah.
He ran behind the camera when it was panning and like had to. He threw a jacket on or something. I can't remember.
Yeah,
and then had to do it back again to go back.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot. I think they had to shoot that several times because he was like struggling with getting the timing right for taking off stuff and putting it back on.
Yeah, guys. I mean, it's pretty quick. It's not like not like he had a ton of time to sit there and do that. Like he had to be quick about it.
Yeah, because like I think it was like, and also he's switching from like two different emotions. Because the first, when he's walking in the door, he's like panicking, like needing help, and then the other one is just him sitting there contemplating, like kind of hating his life.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, and switching from those, and him talking about it in behind the scenes, he was like, "It's not even. My hair's all messed up. It's not even deceiving. It won't deceive you for a second." But I didn't even notice.
Yeah, like I didn't notice from watching it. I found that out from looking at IMDb.
Yeah, I noticed that his hair was messy, but I didn't pick up on the fact that he probably ran behind the camera and ripping off his beanie. and that's why his hair was all messed up. I just was like, he's
Yeah.
distraught, so maybe he's just been like running his fingers through his hair. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the scene where Clementine like leaves he says something really hurtful. The last time he sees Clementine, he says something really hurtful to her, and she like starts getting her stuff to leave, and he's like runs after her to apologize. That was they had a bunch of hidden doors and hidden exits for her to like hop around the and I think they had a double too, because she went into the bathroom, rounded a corner, went through a door, and then came out in the kitchen behind the camera. So he went in there, and then the camera followed Joel in there, and she was just gone. And then it turns around, and she's in the kitchen, grabs her keys, walks around a corner, and then he goes after her, and then the camera turns around, and you see her walking out the door, and that was like a double with just wearing her clothes.
Gotcha. Yeah, I love how much they did practically like that.
I think it definitely adds a lot to the film.
Yeah.
And I wish people would do things practical more often.
Yeah.
I think they did. Christopher Nolan is really good for doing a lot of practical stuff.
Yeah.
Him, and I will say this about J.J. Abrams, he's not the best at story or directing, but he is really good at mixing practical with CGI.
Yeah.
Him and Christopher Nolan are really good for that, and I wish more people would do that.
Yeah. Yeah, Ridley Scott's kind of like that too. Watching a lot of behind the scenes on Prometheus and stuff, he would do it as much practical as possible, and then sometimes would just use the visual to enhance it or add a little bit more to it. But it was like there was a practical thing there, and then it was able to do a little bit more because of the visual effect part of it. So
that's
what it works best that way.
That's what they were going to do with the remake of The Thing. They had all these like practical like puppets for the Thing, and they were going to enhance them with CGI, and then they looked at it and was like, this feels too 80s. They just CGI'd everything. And like if you go and watch the behind the scenes of The Thing and see the puppets that they had created, it's terrifying. They are really, they get under your skin just how terrifying they look. And I wish they had been in. I haven't seen the remake, but I've seen clips because I watched some YouTubers, Corridor Crew, they reacted to it.
I watched that too. Yeah, I haven't seen that remake. Now The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing is also a remake. So I've seen the original and I've seen that remake, but I have not seen the remake of the remake.
I haven't seen the original or the remake. I've seen John Carpenter's and that's it. But I feel like that's all I need to see.
There's also a movie called Horror Express. It's, I think, from, I can't remember the year, maybe the 60s, but it's got Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, and it is based off of the same story that The Thing is based off of. So it's a completely like different setting and everything, but it's based off of the same source material, and it's pretty fun too.
I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah,
because Peter and Christopher Lee are,
especially when they're together. Oh my god, that's all I need to know that I need to watch a movie. Yeah. Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, I'm in. Sign me up.
That makes me really wish Christopher Lee had been in the original Star Wars trilogy.
Oh, I know.
The prequels. I mean, he was great in the prequels.
Yeah.
But think of how much greater it would have
been alongside his buddy. Yeah.
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 But anyway.
There was a lot of practical stuff done with the Jim Carrey as a kid too.
Yeah, that was
Like under the table and stuff, that was like forced perspective stuff. And you can kind of tell a little bit that that's...
Yeah,
But when I first saw it, I thought that they had done it with visual effects.
I did too.
There was something off about it. So that part's not perfect. There's something off about that.
Yeah,
The
it's
way it
definitely
looks.
not well done. As it was in Lord of the Rings. In Lord of the
Yeah.
Rings, I still cannot tell that it was
Yeah.
forced.
Yeah, they another level in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
But I think they benefit. Eternal Sunshine did well to, for that scene to be more the comedy scene, more
yeah,
joking around, less serious, and it's still in his mind, so it doesn't have to be completely realistic at
right.
that point either. So even though it looks a little off and there's something weird about it, it's still not really a flaw for me because of
Right.
all that. They made it
Yeah.
work. They made it work.
Yeah, it doesn't take you out of the film. It's just kind of like, oh, this is interesting
Yeah.
type thing. Yeah. I was gonna say something else. I don't remember what. Oop. Did you have any other points you wanted?
One more thing that I really liked about the in the stuff in his head was like the way that like words on signs and stuff would disappear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it starts out kind of subtle.
Yeah.
Like signs in the background will be disappearing or stuff will disappear, and I did not notice as much of it on my first watch. On my second watch, I started noticing things in the background disappearing.
Mm-hmm.
And as the film goes on, of course, there's like the bit in the library where it's like obvious, oh, it's all disappearing. But I like that build up where they start kind of subtle, but it keeps happening and keeps happening until like everything's being erased.
Yeah.
I liked that a lot.
Here's another really cool visual that they did that I really, really enjoyed was when he goes to see Clementine at the library, like right after she had him erased. He like walks out of the library and walks into his friend's apartment, and just the lights are turning off behind him. I thought that was, and I didn't really like pick up. Like I thought it was really cool and really well done, but I hadn't really picked up until like one of my most recent watches that was probably just that memory getting erased.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many good good little moments.
Yeah. The visuals of just stuff happening are just really, really creative ways of having things. Because the way things get erased is not always the same. Like, there are a few things that stay the same, but there are, like, several different ways that things get erased, and it's all beautiful.
Yeah.
Also, I love how they made the Lacuna Inc. place feel like a doctor's office, because it's familiar to you, so it doesn't feel too science fiction.
Right.
And then the setup is really clunky with a bunch of wires and a big old computer.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I like the fact that it makes it feel more grounded, like it could actually happen, rather than feeling like really science fiction-y.
Yeah, it's out there, but it's grounded. It's not out there like, oh yeah, this is
we have this really high-tech piece of equipment that only needs one wire.
Yeah. They'll be doing this in 100 years. No, it feels like, oh dang, like it feels as if it could happen now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I want to touch on Clementine's hair. I can't take full credit for noticing this, because I didn't notice it until I watched a YouTube video. I cannot remember. I might be able to find the YouTuber who did post about it, because I don't want to talk about it and then not have like a reference. Okay. Yeah, it's by The Secret Symbolism of Clementine's Hair by The Take. Basically, each hair color, part of it is to like place where have a timeline. Like, you can base a timeline based off of her hair. But another part of it is like her hair represents their relationship. There is green, red, orange, and blue. Red is essentially like fall, which is like, death, because the trees die and the leaves fall because it's turning into winter. So it represent, and that's right. Her hair is red when Joel and Clementine break up. So it like represents how their relationship is dead at that point. And then when it's orange, it's summer, so it's getting to like that. It's going to be fall soon, so it's like the weakest point in their relationship. Like, they're still in a relationship. They're kind of like not talking as much. When they do talk, they're kind of fighting or having like that moment when they're eating Chinese restaurant.
Oh yeah.
She's telling him to clean the soap because it's disgusting. And like, he's fixing her hair, and she like gets annoyed at him because he fixed her hair.
Yeah.
And then green is spring, so that's when their relationship was the most passionate. And that's like the majority of the film, and that's when they're like going on the frozen lake. That's when they're like laughing and oh no, maybe I'm backwards. I don't remember. I'm pretty sure orange is when they're fighting, and then green is, I'm pretty sure. Or maybe blue. I don't know. You'll have to watch the video to correct this. But either way, and then blue represents winter, and I think that's when her hair is blue when they first meet, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. So that's like a rekindling, a new passion that they have for each other. And then, so green would be spring, where it's their most passionate, and that's like when she's helping him to try and hide her away, so that way he can remember her in the morning. I would highly suggest watching the video, because he goes into more depth about it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go check that out.
Yeah. And since I mentioned it, you should probably put a link in the description.
Gotcha. Yeah. Send that to me, and I'll put that in the description.
It's a really beautiful film, really well thought out. The script is so good because Charlie Kaufman and Michel Gondry did a really, really good job directing this movie, I think. And this one, I feel like resonate. I haven't seen. There's only one Charlie Kaufman movie I haven't seen, and that's I'm blanking on the name. Being John Malkovich. That's the only one I haven't seen.
I haven't seen that one.
But out of all of them, other than that one, this one resonates with me the most.
Gotcha. I don't think this one resonates with me the most out of all his films. Um, but there's definitely points that do a lot. Which actually makes me think of that moment towards the end when they're in that house on the beach and it's like falling apart, and he's like,
Yeah.
she's talking about why did you leave or whatever. He's like, because you said to go, and it was the way that you said it with like disdain in your voice or whatever. I feel that as an introvert. I feel that when someone says something in a certain way, you're just like done.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, that scene is one of my favorite scenes in movie history.
Yeah.
I love that scene so much.
Yeah.
I recreated it on my TikTok.
Nice.
Yeah. Twice. The first time I just lip synced from the movie. The second time I made like an acting challenge out of it, and I did Joel's line, and then I had subtitles for Clem's line, so that way if anyone wanted to like
duet you or whatever,
duet it, they could act alongside me with as Clem.
Go.
Yeah.
Someone go on TikTok and duet him.
That'll be fun.
I'll link that too.
Man, I love that scene so much. It gives me chills every single time I watch it.
Yeah.
I think the reason this movie resonates with me so much, for one, I am kind of a sucker for like love stories. I don't think rom-coms do them very well for the most part.
Yeah.
But like a really good love story, I'm kind of a sucker for. The other thing is, I went through a really bad breakup not long after I watched this film for the first time. So like, and this movie really, really helped me through that. Like, that's the reason I watched it so many times, was because like whenever I was just in a dark place, just really hating just how much I missed her, I would just turn on the film and just kind of like turn off my brain and just kind of get sucked into this story that they had to tell. And it has a pretty sweet ending. It's not a depressing film.
Yeah.
It is a little depressing throughout.
Yeah.
But by the end of it, you're left feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
Unless you take it a different way, because I mean the ending.
I suppose you could.
You could interpret the ending that even though they do get back together, that they might just end up
in the same place again.
In the same place, but this time they don't have a place to fall back on to erase their memories of each other. This time they'll have to remember everything. But I always took it that since they had their those tapes of them talking about each other's flaws, that they would be able to work on them as they're growing in a relationship, and that would help them through and actually be able to stay together this time. Yeah. For me, the way I interpreted it, it has
Yeah, I don't know that I thought either way which like it would end up, but more that it just ends on a hopeful note. Maybe it's a happy ending, maybe it's a depressing ending, but it's a hopeful one.
Yeah.
Type of thing. But
at least it ends hopeful.
It ends hopeful, yeah. So yeah.
The ending is beautiful. I love it. It's probably my favorite ending of any movie. Lord of the Rings also has a pretty good ending.
Which one?
The third one.
No, I mean,
The
which
end.
ending?
Every time I watch the end of Lord of the Rings, I almost cry. Each time I get a little bit closer to crying.
Yeah, it just feels
I
like
rewatched it all.
it feels like Return of the King has like 5 endings, and you just watch them one after each
Yeah.
other. That's what I meant by which
Yeah.
one. But yeah,
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, just, yeah.
Yeah. I rewatched them not too long ago, like a couple weeks ago, and when it got to the end where Frodo was leaving, I was like, oh my gosh, I might actually cry this time, dude. I was so close.
Yeah.
I was a lot closer than I've ever been to crying at the end of that movie.
Yeah. I think about the closest I ever came to crying in a movie was Rogue One. And not for any reason that anybody would probably think, but I got to see Peter Cushing on the big screen, and that's what almost got me. I was like, oh my god, it's Peter Cushing.
I don't like how people trash on the CGI for...
Oh, it was as good as it could have been.
Yeah.
It could not have been any better at the time.
Yeah. Like, I think... And it doesn't pull me out. Like, it really doesn't bother me at all. Like, yeah, you can tell it's CGI, and yeah, it's obviously not Peter Cushing, but it doesn't pull me out. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
It's just another character for me, so...
Yeah. And for me, it was just they put enough into it that it you could tell that they had put a lot of care into making it as good as it could be. Which is what meant a lot to me, because if they just half-assed it, then I'd have been like,
oh yeah,
you know,
why?
Yeah,
Why even try?
Don't
point.
Yeah, don't mess up Peter Cushing's legacy. But when they put so much care into it like that, it was like, okay.
I want to talk about the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian real quick. So if you haven't seen that, click away or skip ahead. But Luke's face in the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian, I wasn't bothered by his either. His was probably, I think, a little bit closer to deep fake. I think it was more of a deep fake because they had less time to work on it than they did in Rogue One.
Yeah, I was thinking it was a deep fake.
A lot of people
it was very stiff.
That too. Yeah,
the only thing that threw me off was it was very stiff. Other than that, it looked pretty great, but it was just very, very stiff. Not a lot of emotion being shown.
But it still didn't bother me as much as it bothered a lot of other people.
Yeah. Same.
I just enjoyed. I do kind of wish that they would I kind of wish that they would stop doing CGI as much and kind of just get actors who kind of look like they're the younger versions of them. Mainly because, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be fine if they just got a younger person who kind of looked like a younger version of Mark Hamill.
A lot of people thought it was going to be, what's his face? Winter Soldier.
Yeah. That would have been, like, I would have been fine with that. But I'm also fine with the deep fake. That was worked for me.
Yeah. I think something like that is fine as long as they're not going to be a big part. If they're just in a scene. But if they're going to be in it a lot, then you need to get an actor.
Yeah. Like Solo. They got an actor to play Han Solo.
Yeah.
He was fine. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, not my favorite. Probably not my first pick. But it worked.
Yeah.
And he's a fine actor. Like, I'm not saying he's a bad actor. He's a pretty good actor, but...
Yeah. Well, we're getting off topic. Any other thoughts on Eternal Sunshine? Or should we have, like, closing thoughts?
I think I've said everything that I wanted to say.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's just masterful cinema, masterful writing, masterful directing, beautiful cinematography, great acting. Just everything is great about it.
Yeah.
I give it a 10 out of 10.
I give it a 10 out of 10 as well. There are some things that you could like nitpick it, like we were saying about they should have sent Joel a Lacuna letter, or there was something else.
The forced perspective being off, seeming a little funny. Yeah.
Off. Those things don't bother me enough to give it a lower rating. Like,
it doesn't take you out of it. You're still immersed in the film.
Yeah, and I think like my reasoning for why they wouldn't send Joel a letter, I feel like works in the story. Like, my own headcanon for why they didn't send him one works for the story, so that doesn't bother me at all. And it might for some people, but
yeah.
And even if they did, it probably still wouldn't change the story at all. So, like,
yeah,
it would have just progressed the story maybe a little bit faster. But you would have had to cut out scenes, but it probably still would have happened the same. So who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely highly recommend if you haven't seen it.
Yeah. Which hopefully you listened to us and watched it before watching all the spoilers here.
Yeah. Hopefully.
But hopefully this has made you want to go watch it again.
Yeah. For sure. It used to be on Netflix. It's not anymore. Depending on when you're watching this, it might be back on there or on a completely different streaming service. Who knows?
Yeah. Could be on in another country. Get a VPN, maybe.
Yeah. Keep your eye out for it.
Yeah. Let us know in the comments your thoughts on Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. We'd love to have discussions down there as well with you guys.
What you like, what you didn't like.
Yeah. Let's talk about it. And thanks for getting this far. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to me, subscribe to Film and Thespian, and catch you guys in the next one. Auf Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen.